Given that you've given us a story behind FemmePWR, how it's looking now, what do you think what are your prospects for leadership in the future?
My personal leadership?
Your personal leadership, and as well as what you think leadership would look like in the future, maybe 4 or 5 years from now. Yeah.
Whew. Okay.
I know it's intense. I
Wow.
could be like that sometimes. So hello and welcome. This is the AOU podcast where we talk about entrepreneurial leadership in Africa. My name is Savannah Olo, and my guest today is Hope. Maybe she can introduce herself and tell us a bit about what she does and what her journey in entrepreneurial leadership has been like. Maybe we can start off there, then we can get into the topic of the day.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Savannah. So as you said, my name is Hope Mutua. I'm a fourth-year social science student just about to graduate. So I'm really
Yay.
excited for that. I guess my entrepreneurial leadership journey, I'd say, started at a really young age. I
Right.
think I've always had a knack for either making money or B, sort of like leading others or bringing people together
Right.
around a common goal. But specifically in like my university journey, I think that's where it really grew. That's where I really learned a lot about, who is a leader and who am I as a leader.
Right.
And also began sort of creating platforms where I led people. And that led me to starting FemmePWR, which is a women empowerment platform where we work with young college women to try and sort of empower them, especially in their career journeys, to become more confident. So we deal with issues such as like personal branding or professional branding, or even building confidence or dealing with problems such as sexual harassment in the workplace.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is pretty intense. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah.
It also said here that you are a digital storyteller. Tell us a
Yes.
bit about that as well.
Yeah, so on top of leading and making money, another thing that I really love is stories. I think that the human population thrives on stories. We are moved by stories.
Right.
And so that's kind of also where I want to go with my career journey. On top of just empowering women and doing the other different things that I do, I want to be able to tell people stories. So maybe through journalism or through marketing, tell the stories. I say that tell the stories that, bring an impact on society or move people to make a difference.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
so it started, my dad works in the NGO sector.
Okay.
So one day, I think when I was young, he took me on one of his work trips and then he dumped me with the communications team. And then so we went around and we're just listening to all the stories, and then we went back to the office and they were typing them up, making them into this sort of like presentations, these brochures, all these different things.
Right.
And they were telling me the impact that these stories would have. So it would go to like a donor who'd be just simply touched by a story, and they're just donating money to help like 100 kids. And I was like, wow, storytelling can be powerful.
Look at
So
you.
I guess that's something I want to do.
You were properly endowed into the daddy daycare culture. NGO
Yes.
edition.
Yes.
And you don't mention that your article is featured in Thrive Global.
Ooh.
Humble brag. We see you. But that's a story
That-
for another day, I guess. Yeah?
Yeah, that can be a story. But that was, I guess, when you tell a story, sometimes you tell a story not necessarily for people to read it, but you want to express yourself.
Right.
And it ends up, I don't know, getting noticed or getting
Well,
touching
accolades
someone.
to you. We bow.
Thanks.
Yeah, so getting into today's topic, I did mention that this is AOE podcast, entrepreneurial leadership in Africa. I don't know why I keep stumbling over my words. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about leadership and it being a new beacon of hope in Africa. Now, I see what the producer did here.
I know.
So, what is leadership to you? That's what I could start with, to be honest, yeah.
I think so. Over the last 3 years, my journey here at ALU, I think my definition of leadership has really changed from being just, someone who's like at the top
Right.
and sort of like, actually leading people, but to be more of like someone who can influence or guide people towards a certain direction, someone who has the confidence to be able to be like, you know what, I'm going to take this direction, irrespective of whether people follow me or not.
Right.
So, and then another thing that I've been able to discover about leadership is, the ability to, first of all, lead yourself before you go and lead
She
others.
is gem dropping for us, ladies and gentlemen. Carry on.
Yeah, so just that And I realized, especially when leadership tends to be a noisy place where leadership looks like you standing in front of people, talking in front of people, like always being loud.
Right.
But then I realized that some of the best leaders, what really helped them succeed was the fact that they led themselves first. So they were self-aware of like, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, this is where I come in, this is where I take a step and let other people take the
Right.
platform.
Exactly, yeah.
So being able to lead yourself first and then being able to lead others. Once you know who you are, then you're more effective when leading others.
That's interesting. I think for me, leadership is more of being able to serve others through your voice and through the things that you're able to do. Just as you said, you need to be able to lead yourself in order to lead others. That brings us to like the biggest debate. Even like world leaders do not even know how to answer this question. But are leaders born or made, in your opinion? Quite frankly, I feel like it's a niche energy debate. So it's not something I could be born into, but naturally I'd want to be a part of something based on the environment that I'm in. So that's when the nurture aspect comes in. But
I see
I don't know
what
what you
you're saying.
think.
Actually, that's a very interesting way of looking about it. I don't know. I mean, there are people that you can see they're sort of like naturally led to be leaders. But then
Right.
again, that argues are leaders just like extroverted people who know how to stand in front of a group
Yeah, so
and
then
move
what
people.
happens to the introverts, yeah?
That's where I think at the heart of like leadership is like, as you mentioned, this sort of passion to serve people,
Right.
or like being able to create a platform where other people's voices can be heard, or doing something that changes what people are doing.
Right.
So in that sense, I think as long as you have that passion, you could develop the so-called leadership skills, being able to lead. So like now actually like leading people, convincing people. Because the other thing is leadership is hard. It's not just about standing there and being like, this is what I stand for and this is why you should believe me. But it's really about convincing people, moving people. Why should I stop doing what I'm doing? Why should I drop this ideals that I've had for so many years and follow you?
That is amazing that you bring that up because considering that you're the co-founder of FemmePWR, this woman just has accolades here, left, right, and center. What has your journey been like in developing? Because essentially, FemmePWR is supposed to empower women and make them leaders in themselves. Aside from you leading them throughout their journeys as they grow and learn and unlearn things. So, what are the challenges that have greatly affected the development of leadership and institutions in Africa, in your
I'd
opinion?
say one thing is what's this word? I keep forgetting this word. When you're doing something over and over again.
Insanity.
No, not insanity. That too. Being constant.
Consistency.
Consistency.
All right, yeah.
That's one thing that has really, and it's also something that's been a bit. I mean, yes, like we're creating this platform, but on
Right.
top of that, we're students. We have other projects. We have
Yeah.
part-time internships.
Priorities.
So like priorities,
Yeah.
different priorities. So being able to like be consistent with this thing, I think that's what differentiates like a common leader from like a really great leader. And as you mentioned, insanity. Someone said it's creativity is doing something over and over
expecting
again.
a different result.
Yeah, so that's the
Right.
thing. It's like sticking through with that. And I think many institutions, they start strong, but then after some time, when the challenges come in,
It
they're
kind of
like,
dies down
deuces.
because you don't know what to do as well.
Yeah. Another thing I think is also like ethics. And
Right.
many of our governments, especially, ethics is something that they've kind of discarded.
Shake the tables, Hope. Shake them. Shake
So
them.
like just that, standing firm, being, having integrity and being able to say, I will do right.
Right.
And also like, right is subjective, but then what is right and how does your right impact other people? So being able to, make that judgment. And the final thing that I think is a problem with leadership in many of our institutions is also being able to tap into leaders at a young age. So I
Okay.
think we don't need to wait for people to be like 50 before, we're
It's
calling
not-
them leaders
yeah,
and doing that.
exactly.
I think we can start at a very young age, even in like primary school, noticing that a kid has a passion to like move people or lead people or influence
Right.
people, being able to tap into them and to grow them at that young age and, helping them realize that they have the potential to be leaders.
All right. I guess we can just conclude with one last question. So we talked about how leaders are expected to be extroverts and very out in the open and big personalities and very talkative. So there's certain situations where somebody doesn't want to be a leader. So what advice would you give that person to embody their leadership behaviors. Like they just have to tap into it. So what advice would you give that person?
I think the most important thing is like lead yourself first.
Right.
Because, through yourself, people will be able to learn from you. They'll see you as an example. And like in leading yourself, things such as like being self-aware.
I was just about to ask.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
like self-regulation, self-improvement. We don't need to wait for people to tell us that this is what you need to improve in, but like being able to look into yourself and being like, okay, I know I'm good, but I could get better.
Right.
And what are the things I need to do to get better? So also, yeah, humility. Accepting that it's a journey. And yeah, the final thing I think I'd say is that leadership does not have to be loud, in your own
Right.
quiet, in your own little corner, in your own quiet way. You
So
could
quiet
be a
ones you
leader.
gotta watch out for. Though.
Exactly. You never know. And that's the thing, because I like to think I'm a bit of an introvert sometimes. And so leadership does not need to be, loud, that even as an introvert, I can be able to lead. So I've seen like with some of my friends around, some of the best leaders that I've learned from are people who are introverted, people who are quiet, people who really moved by example. So how they lived their life, the
Yeah.
values that they upheld really inspired other people. Because at the end of the day, I think like effective leaders are the ones that move people to do something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that. Damn. I think we could add a few more questions on top of that. Maybe you can tell us how FemmePWR came to be and what the initial vision was for it and how it differentiates from what it is now. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it started out of, a need that I had in myself.
Right.
I realized that, as a woman on this career journey, there were some things that, in as much as we're all for like women are strong, women are powerful, there were some issues that I faced. And I wasn't the only one. I would talk to people and they're like, oh, I'm not so confident when it comes to like things like negotiating salary, different
Right.
things like that. Or like even speaking out when you're like the only woman in a whole table. And those are situations that we still find ourselves in.
And
being
it's very common.
Exactly,
Not, yeah.
exactly. So, how do we navigate that? And then another thing, it came out of the, I like to believe that community builds us and supports us.
Right.
So could we, create a community where as women we could come together, learn from each other, because we have a lot to learn from each other. That's the thing we need to realize is just because someone's killing it doesn't mean you should be jealous and, come and backstab them. But, you should come and learn from them. What is it that they're doing right that you can learn and maybe apply into your own life?
Exactly,
So a
yeah.
community where we could come and learn from each other, challenge each other, and finally support each other. So just be there for each other. And so when it started, we had this idea of like a physical community, because I guess we were at ALU, so we wanted to like test it around here.
Right.
Maybe could we have like monthly gatherings where we'd have sort of workshop style gatherings where would feature an inspiration called an inspiration boss lady. So someone who's accomplished or like, spent some years working, has some years of experience, and they can come and share. And these monthly gatherings would be centered around a topic. So like personal branding could be a topic. So what can we learn? What are some tools that we can share with each other? Some questions that we might be scared of asking in other platforms, can we come and ask them here?
What would those questions be?
I don't know, those questions that you're like asking for a friend, those questions that
okay.
might seem silly, or questions that you might be afraid of asking in other, okay, maybe to think of like, I don't know, do you have ideas of like
I
certain?
don't think so, because I feel like I wouldn't say that I've been no, I wouldn't say that I'm nervous or shy in certain situations, but I feel like I've been bold enough to ask the questions that I need to ask. Well, excluding things like, what's going to be my pay. But, we move forward with other things like, are the values that your company hold aligning with the values that I have? What is your stance on maybe like the LGBTQ community? Such things. Like, I haven't been one to shy away from such questions, because I know if I'm going to be working in a particular space, or if I'm going to be around a particular group of people, I need to be able to air out what my voice can share,
And I think, I don't know, I mean, so like personally, I can be quite shy when it comes to certain questions.
I mean, no, from knowing you, yes, I can definitely tell, yeah.
And so it's also the idea that, like being able to see that someone around the same age as I am, someone who's, in sort of like we're both in university, in the same university, who has the confidence to be able to ask this question also inspires me. So now all of a sudden I'm like, I don't need to shy away from asking these questions. And like one of the questions was like, dealing with like sexual harassment. How do you, there's like casual flirting. And then
Yeah, but
there's
that's
like
still
when it's drawing.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
But there's also like, there's certain lines, and then especially as interns, there's certain
Right.
things that you don't know whether to distinguish. Okay, when does this border
this a
between like, is it a joke? And
The
different
gray
things
line
like
is it's
exactly,
too blurry.
exactly.
Okay, I get what
But
you
I
mean
think
now.
the most important thing is, not to realize that one, you're not alone. If you have these questions, it's fine to have these questions, and it's all right if you feel that you're not comfortable enough to ask these questions, but also to be able to challenge each other. That as you're saying, I should have the confidence to have this
Right.
conversations. I should be able to go to my boss and be like, you know what, this isn't right. So drawing on that strength of each other, I guess, empowers you more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that you said that. Given that you've given us a story behind FemmePWR, how it's looking now, what do you think what are your prospects for leadership in future?
My personal leadership?
Your personal leadership, and as well as what you think leadership would look like in the future, maybe 4 or 5 years from now. Yeah.
Whew. Okay.
I know it's intense. I
Wow.
could be like that sometimes.
Okay. Maybe to start with what I think leadership could look like. Okay. Well. Okay. I guess for myself, I think one thing that has really helped me in my leadership journey is knowing that one, it's a journey. And that's what I'm slowly coming to realize. Especially like right now, I'm about to graduate. There are kind of a lot of questions that need to be answered
And
as
a lot
soon
of
as possible.
expectations
Exactly,
of you,
exactly.
yeah.
And realizing that even if I want to get to like this certain position in life, or if I want to accomplish the certain things in life, I need to take it easy on myself, be patient with myself, and learn that it's a journey. Another thing is being open. So you're not always going to be the leader.
That is the biggest gem you've dropped.
You're not always
Yes.
going to be the leader, and sometimes you're going to need to follow other people.
Yeah.
You're going to need to start from that bottom job to get to that top job. So it's, being open to whatever learning experiences come your way, being smart enough, or like being, maybe not smart, but I forget the word, but, being able to recognize these are the lessons in each experience.
All right. So just self-awareness.
Yeah,
in a
self-awareness.
sense,
Yeah. So knowing when it's time to follow, and knowing that it's gonna come a time when you can lead, but what can you learn from following other people? And what can you learn from the little leadership that you get? And also knowing that leadership is not like large scale, it's small little things.
Yeah.
It could be that small study group you have in your class, that's leadership. It could be leading a whole club or something.
Okay. So what do you see leadership being like in the
Forgot
future?
about that. I think it's gonna be a bit tricky because to some extent we're becoming a bit more individualistic.
Girl.
And so it's like it's gonna be a lot harder to convince. On one hand, because of like social media, it's with the whole influencer vibe and all that.
Right.
It's slightly easier to convince people to do something.
Right.
But also it's gonna become a lot harder because people are becoming more self-aware, I think, to some extent. People are like, okay, these are my values, this is what I want to get out of this experience. And so really trying to get people to understand or to share a common vision and to come together and work together towards that common vision might be a little bit hard. But I think all in all, we're also becoming more supportive of each other. I mean, with different movements to some extent.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a keyword, right?
Yeah, to some extent. Obviously, everything is to some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think leadership is going to become really leading. I keep saying this, but like leading yourself first, being able to understand who you are first before you go and lead other people. That's going to be a key between differentiating, just the common leaders and like who are the great leaders. And so people really want to see that, I can respect you. And I think maybe that's why we follow influencers. We feel like, they kind of got it, they know what they want to do.
Right.
And so that sort of inspires us in a way.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in today for the AOU podcast, Entrepreneur Leadership in Africa. Our guest today was Hope. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you guys are looking forward to leading yourselves first in the future, now, or even just introspecting and finding out what entrepreneurial leadership skills you may acquire from that. So, until the next podcast, we will see you.